Hello everyone, my name is Michelle, and today we're going to be talking about how to find the slope of a line. So first, the slope formula. The slope formula is going to be used when you're given 2 points and you want to find the slope. So 2 points, that's going to be x1, y1, x2, y2. That's going to be your 2 points. And the actual slope formula is going to be m equals the change in y over the change in x, where m is slope, which doesn't make sense, but just go along with it, and change in y you might have heard it as rise, and change in x you might have heard it as run, so rise over run. Another way this can be written is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So this will be your slope formula given 2 points. So there are kind of three different kinds of problems you might be given about slope. The first kind will be identifying the slope out of a formula. And this will usually be a formula of a line, something like y equals mx plus b, or y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And if you were identifying the slope, well, slope is m, so the slope would just be this letter. So that's pretty easy. The next kind of problem you might see is if you're given 2 points. So if we were given x and y, and x and y, and you would be asked to find the slope, and in this case you would use the slope formula that we just discussed earlier. And the final way you'll probably see it is as a graph. So you'll see a graph of a line, and you'll be asked to find 2 points on the line to find the slope. So in the case of a graph, you can do it 2 ways. You can find the slope using the graph, or you can find 2 points on the graph and use the slope formula. Alright, so enough talking, let's actually get into the examples and you'll see what I mean. So here we have example A. We are given a line, and it looks like we are given 2 points on the line. So sometimes you might be given points for your graph, and sometimes you won't. Obviously, if you are given points, then use those points to find the slope, but if you're not, then usually you want to do your best to find a point on that graph that is whole numbers. Alright, so back to example A. So one way to find the slope is just by looking at the graph. And what we're going to do is we're going to find the change in y and the change in x. And we do that just by counting the distance between the 2 points. So we go 1, 2, so x equals 2, and then 1, 2, y equals 2. And so now that we have our numbers, slope is going to be y over x. So remember, in slope, everything is y over x. It's never x over y. So our slope, m, would equal 2 over 2, which is the same thing as 1. So our slope is 1. There's also another way you could find the slope by using the slope formula. So to use the slope formula, we need 2 points. We are given 2 points, so let's just identify them. This top one is 1, 1, and this bottom one is -1, -1. So now we have to choose which point we want to be x1, y1, and which point we want to be x2, y2. And it really doesn't matter, so let's just say this point, I'm circling blue, this is going to be our x1, y1. And this point in yellow is going to be our x2, y2. So yeah, now all we do is plug it into the slope formula. So our slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So let's plug our stuff in. y2 in our case is -1 minus y1, which is 1, over x2, which is -1, minus x1, which is 1. Now we're just going to simplify. In the numerator, -1 minus 1 is -2, and in the denominator, -1 minus 1 is also -2. And that is just going to simplify into 1. So as you can see, using both methods, we get the same slope. So obviously for graphs, it's going to be easier to just count the steps on using the graph, but doing it both ways is a good way to check your work. So on to example B. Once again, we're given 2 points for this graph. So let's count these steps. First, we're going to count horizontally. You go 1, 2, 3. And remember, we're trying to get to the other point, which is right here. So our x is going to equal -3. Remember, it's -3 because we went in the left direction, and on a graph, left is negative. And then we're going to go up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And since we went up 5, our y is 5. Then we're going to put those two numbers together, y over x. So we're going to get 5 over -3. And since we can't simplify any further, this is our slope. Next, let's solve using the slope formula. First, let's identify our 2 points. This point is 2, 0. And this point is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. -5. Let's identify our x1, y1, and x2, y2. I'll just say this blue one will be our x1, y1. And this yellow point will be our x2, y2. So let's write down our slope formula. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Here we're going to plug our numbers in. y2 is -5 minus y1, which is 0, over x2, which is +5, minus x1, which is +2. Now we're just going to simplify. In the numerator, -5 minus 0, that's just -5, over 5 minus 2, which is 3. And that is our slope. So as you can see, once again, we have the same answer using both methods. So it's really just a matter of preference. Next, let's move away from graphs and go into just numbers. So we have example C. We are given a line formula, y equals 4x plus 3. And we're asked to find the slope. So first we have to recognize what is the formula for this line. And we can see that this is the y equals mx plus b formula. And in this formula, the m is next to the x right here. So in y equals 4x plus 3, we can see that m equals 4. Alright, moving on to D. We are given 2 points, 5, 3, and 2, -1, and we are asked to find the slope. To do that, we are going to use the slope formula. Just like before, we're going to identify our x1, y1, and our x2, y2. So I'll say this first one is x1, y1, and the second point is x2, y2. Alright, so let's write our slope formula down. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And we are going to plug our numbers in. y2 is -1 minus y1, which is 3, over x2, which is 2, minus x1, which is 5. Now we're just going to simplify. In the numerator, -1 minus 3 equals -4, and in the denominator, 2 minus 5 equals -3. The negatives are going to cancel each other out, so we're going to be left with 4 over 3. And that is the slope of this line. Alright, so moving on to example E, I encourage you to pause right here and try this out yourself. Alright, so let's get started on example E. We are given 2 points, -4 and 1, and 2 and 2. So we're going to identify our x1, y1, and our x2, y2. And this time we're going to change it up. Not going to say the first one is x1, y1. Let's say the first one is x2, y2. And this is to explain that it doesn't matter which one of your points is x2, y2, or x1, y1. All that matters is x1 is with y1 and x2 is with y2 in the same point. Alright, so this one is x2, y2. And our second point is x1, y1. I'm not going to write out the formula this time because I know the formula, but if you're just learning this, then of course it's recommended to write down the formula every time you solve this, just to, get it in your memory. Alright, so y2, which is 1, minus y1, which is 2, over x2, which is -4, minus x1, which is 2. Now we're going to simplify this. In the numerator, 1 minus 2, that's -1, over -4 minus 2, which is -6. The negatives are going to cancel out, and we're going to be left with 1 over 6. And that is the slope of this line. Alright, so that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you learned something today. Have a wonderful day.